This is a Buto-inspired physical theatre piece which speaks about reincarnation, rebirth, karma, death, life, created by Gonçalo Coelho and myself, Paula. One of our last projects at Year 3 at Middlesex University, London. Working with Gonçalo has always been great fun and an inspiring, almost like action movie experience. The great mind behind the idea was his, and as I have some interest around those subjects, we became a good match at the end. The concept of the piece is a series of pictures drawn through Buto movement, which is a Japanese art. An inspiration drawn through it we used to portray the eternity of life as we see it. From birth to death, back to birth. We had two bodies, ourselves, and as a person who was responsible for the overall look, I wanted to go deeper into the concept of soul, which by itself isn't restricted only to human. We know from the beginning that we'd like to use sand to portray this image of sand clock. We wrote down the scenes, or stages as we call them later, and left it there for thinking. In the last 3 years spent in London, surrounded by theatre, studying and just trying to survive by myself basically, I went on a mission of discovering my identity, my style, my work process. And being here at the end, I'm starting to see how this reflects my work. My work process always starts with a conversation with my team, and then after that conversation, we leave it for a week. Throughout this time, what I do is visualize it. I would draw pictures of it, try to find references on the internet, or I'm just using a focus rest for my mind to process or bring me more ideas. I was drawing the stage, thinking how that would reflect the movement, what sound would push the concept forward, light, do we need props, set, etc., or do we want to leave it more minimalistic? And it clicked. The idea started to materialize, it started taking shapes and forms, and the only thing that was left to do for us was just follow the flow. Me and Gonçalo, we know each other and our movement capabilities. We had these moments throughout the years where we would, after an acting class, for example, we would stay in the studio and we would just improvise with each other. That was part of our way of understanding and communicating with each other, I guess. One of the most important factors of my work is knowing my cast, my fellow actors or dancers. Because when you know the people that you're working with, the risk from failing falls from 10 to 5. Because you know their concerns, you know how they would reflect, you know their defensive mechanisms, and you're ready to play with it, because at the end of the day we're very dependent on each other. To tell you how we constructed it, I would have to go back to the stages we were talking about earlier. The first thing that we decided was our message, and that was that life is eternal, there is more than death. What we came up with is presenting a cycle of movement that would repeat over and over again, that would start, let's say that would start from 0, would go to 10, and then we'll go back to 0 and back to 10. We have birth, first breath, first few steps, and we wanted to portray this on the stage. The exact scenes or stages as we called them, the way we wrote them was first birth, then I, recognition of the self. I am the beginning of definition of the self. I guess I am the beginning of the guest stage. I could be self open for exploration. I am that determination of the self according to the world. Am I questioning of existence? I was death. And then again, I, reincarnation, recognition of the self. I am the beginning of definition, and so on and so on. As this was very abstract, we went into the space and we just tried to explore, okay, what do we mean by these stages? They do make sense, but at the same time they don't make sense. So how do we translate this between us, and how do we then push it forward with movement? The next thing was creating the sound, which came from our Buto idea. The sound in Buto is very plain, or how I like to call it, is very neutral. It's neither happy nor sad, neither good nor bad. So that is perfect for creating the choreography and actually trusting the choreography to deliver the message that we would like to deliver. Buto comes from Japanese culture in the late 1950s, which is comparatively late. It's not very famous in the European culture, but very recognizable once you see it. Years ago, when I was younger, I was staying at home looking at the TV and changing the channels, and then I randomly stopped on one and I saw this man and woman dancing with each other. I couldn't change it for hours because the way they were moving, it was so special. I believe they were naked, but at the same time it wasn't sexualized, or it wasn't getting intimate in any way. They were just wrapped around each other and changing into different forms and shapes, and they had these interesting expressions that just seemed unhuman, but very human at the same time. Back at that time, I was in ballet school, and you know ballet, how it is. It's very perfect, very beautiful. There is nothing out of the ordinary there. It's physics, it's straight, it's appropriate. And in the movement of those two, it wasn't like that. It was natural. It was wrong. I still can't find this performance, it was way too long ago. But that was the perfect reference for both of us, and I gave this example to Gonzalo and we took it in mind. The way we developed the choreography was quite fast. We spent more time into translating the stages that we were thinking about. We were taking a period of life and identifying it to one of the stages we had in our script, or the Bible. So let's say one stage would be puberty, another stage would be your 30 to 40s, another stage would be 4 to 7 years of age, and making our research at home in the internet. Okay, what actually happens when you pass through those different years? And we thought, okay, let's say that puberty is the period when you really are starting to feel wild. You're starting to feel like, oh my god, I'm a person and I have freedom, so I'm gonna explore around. Or going back your years of 1 to 3, you're making your first steps, the way you explore, the way you touch, the way you look around. That was again a reference to our movement. Set design. As I said, one of the only things we knew in the beginning is that we want this sand to be falling from the ceiling, and to create this powerful image of a spotlight lighted from above and the sand falling from there, creating this dune on the ground that we would be dancing on. However, the making of it. How do you hang 50 kg of sand from 16-foot high ceiling without killing yourself and making it start and stop whenever you want? It may sound easy, but it wasn't. I don't okay, I mean, mine doesn't sound, does it? Gonzalo was responsible for the set, and his idea was to have this 50 kilos of sand in a large bottle that we're gonna wrap around rope and hang it from the ceiling, and then we're gonna create a hole that would make the sand fall. But then how do we start and stop it, was the question I asked, and he was like, oh, we're gonna have a rope that is gonna be very long, and a person is gonna pull it so that the bottle goes to the side, and then release it so it falls down. So that kind of physics would say that when you turn that bottle to the side, it will make the sand stop and then release it again so it can go again. Well, that was big fail, and we realized it in the morning of the performance when we went there and we spoke with the technicians, and they just looked at us and they were like, what? No, they just didn't let it, because that was way too big of a risk. If that bottle falls on top of us, because we were under the sand, it was falling on our heads. That was supposed to happen. If this falls on our heads, tutto finito. So a few hours before the whole performance, we had to figure out a way how to hang this from the ceiling, and we came up with the idea of creating a wooden box in the form of a funnel, and we created a mechanism that made the stand stop and start. That mechanism was constructed of two small pieces, one metal and one wooden, and was attached in the middle with a little motor that was basically doing this movement. So that would close and open, and that was operated from the lighting desk. And I would like to thank the whole team of Middlesex, and specifically Joe Jackson and Mark Huxley, for helping us make this come true, because that was so crucial for our concept. Without it, it would be almost nothing. So where was this sand playing part? In the beginning, there was no sand. We were in our starting position that was very special. It was on the poster as well. That was supposed to represent yin and yang, and also the pose that we are in our mother's womb. We had this red spotlight on that made it even more accurate. So we were just staying there and we were hearing the heartbeat, and then as we detached from the pose, just about to start the second stage, which was the first breath, starting to construct our bodies higher. That is the moment when the sand starts falling. And why was that? While you're in the womb, we thought that it's almost like the time doesn't exist for you as a individual inside there. And whenever you come out, that is when you start having the sand clock. I don't know if it's just me, but it makes me feel like it's just it's not we have time. It's almost like we're running out of time. Then we have the stage of am I, when you stop and you end up in this existential crisis of looking back and questioning everything. It was almost like an illusion, isn't it? And I believe every person comes to that kind of realization in life, when you fight throughout your whole life about something and you think that something is going to give you happiness, but then you realize that no, happiness was always under my nose. I just had to take it. It's not about that 9-to-5 jobs that you work your whole life. How we portrayed this was from these two creatures that we were in the beginning becoming more and more human, more humanized, part of this technical world, the internet. The moment we entered that, there was a scene when the two actors meet each other and they handshake, they hug, and they kill each other, which was again another big metaphor. I think was very powerful. Whenever we finished this cycle, whenever we finished the choreography, we decided, okay, now we're gonna repeat the whole thing again, but we're gonna change roles. So the other person this time kills the one that was the murderer in the beginning. Issues. Of course we had issues. We had issues with everything. But the biggest issue was time. Of course, our biggest challenge was the set, because that kind of installation has to be tested over time. You can't just go in the morning and create it like we thought. But yeah, we didn't do that, and next time we would do that. Yeah, I hope. But as Leonardo da Vinci says, art is never finished, only abandoned. Or as I would like to say, time and money are your biggest enemy in theater. Another thing was the costume. We had problems with these caps because Gonzalo has this huge hair, and of course with that problems in the morning with the set, we didn't glue the hats, and in the middle of the performance I saw that his cap was slipping out, And why did we have them? Yeah, that was my idea, to make us look bold, because I didn't want the audience to identify from the moment when they were seeing us, okay, this one is a man and this one is a woman and they're gonna be playing these parts here. No, it was more like they are some kind of creatures and they're becoming more human over time. As we were dancing, in the middle of the performance, I saw that Gonzalo's cap was slipping out. And what I did was, okay, let's improvise with that. So I took it out and I made it look like it's part of the choreography. And actually, when I was doing that, I was like, oh, we should have done that. We should have choreographed it that way from the beginning. Because whenever I saw his hair falling down, it was just so beautiful, first of all. And second of all, it made him look like Gonzalo. In the beginning, you would think, this is something else, those two, they are some kind of creatures, but then when you remove this and when you have the hair, they're becoming normal. I believe in these moments we understand that sometimes something seems very wrong, and sometimes something can go very wrong, but at the end it was actually good. It was meant to be that way. It wasn't a mistake. It was an extraordinary experience, I believe, for me, for Gonzalo, and for the rest of the audience, because those subjects we don't see every day on stage, we don't speak about them every day, and we all feel them. Ego doesn't exist when you're born. Ego, translated from Latin, means I. The I doesn't have identity. It just is, as Buddha says. We start identifying ourselves over time as an outcome of our mistakes, fears, pain. We understand that we want to try differently, so we change. We become something different. Religion views it as sin. Humans carry souls. Humans carry life. What humans also do is take lives. In our performance, we wanted to show how every person is capable of good and bad, that our actions leave trace in our lives. You can view it in two ways. Your actions will affect your next life, karma. Or if you don't believe in reincarnation, then think about how your actions affect your loved ones or the next generation.